Welcome, everybody, to the Bridging the Gap podcast. Our mission here is to encourage, equip, and empower every woman on her faith journey with Jesus Christ. Today, we are excited to hear from coach, author, mentor, and the founder of Perfectly Made Ministries, Brandi Ramirez, along with our podcast host, McKelty Bloom. In this episode, Brandi shares about the day her ministry launched when she went to the park in obedience, wondering if anyone would show up. Her mission through Perfectly Made Ministries is to bring women into a closer relationship with Jesus. She's passionate about the Holy Spirit, connection, vulnerability, and encouraging others to walk in obedience of everything God asks. Some steps of obedience have felt like mountains, but Brandi has experienced God show up in big ways through the fruit of her obedience. And she encourages us to take the next step in front of us. Get ready for a big dose of inspiration in this one, as you'll be encouraged that your obedience is attached to someone else's breakthrough. Wow, and there's so much more, so let's get to it. Now to our conversation with Brandi and McKelty.
Brandi, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here. How are you feeling? Are you excited to be here?
So excited. So honored. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Of course. Well, for everybody listening today, there is a real treat that's about to happen. I have my friend, Brandi Ramirez, who is here to talk about obedience. It's a fun topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good one. And Brandi, you have been in my life for the past, we were just talking about it and it was really fun to reflect that, but since 2022. And I had a women's event that I hosted in Farmington, and you showed up with a friend, and we didn't know each other.
No.
I still don't even know how you found us. It was the Lord, right?
Yeah, the Spirit.
Right,
Yeah.
the Spirit led you there. And then from that, I remember we started following each other on social media, and I would see all of your stuff, and I'm like, look at this lady who loves the Lord. Like, you love the Lord so much, and you were so bold and just talking about like what the Lord was doing in your life and all of these things. And I was like, wow, I want to be her friend.
I wanted to be your friend.
And we were both like wanting to be each other's friends.
I was so inspired by you. I was like, oh my gosh, my Kelty. And now we're friends.
Yeah,
Look at that.
And now we're friends. But it was so fun because I moved closer to you. And I used to be in Brooklyn Center and then in Buffalo. You're in St. Michael. And so now it's like we actually get to be friends and have coffee. And it's been so fun for me to become more involved in your ministry that we'll talk about in a little bit, but to just see all that God is doing in your life. And there's something, I'm just going to brag on you for a little bit. There's something about seeing somebody completely stepping into the calling that they have on their life that is truly amazing to watch. And people who are so against living in fear, and they're like, I'm going to boldly, even though I have my moments of insecurity or frustration or doubt, like I'm going to call those out for what it is. And doing that truly helps other people live in that way as well. And you completely embody that in all that you do. And it's just so fun for me to see that in you. And here we are, friends, and it's just great. So I'm excited to have you on. But now that I've rambled about you a little bit, why don't you introduce yourself for all the people listening? Tell us a little bit about who you are and your ministry too.
Yeah. So I am Brandi Ramirez, and I am a wife to Jose. We live in St. Michael, and we love anything on the water. So Southern girl here from Florida.
If you couldn't hear it in your voice.
When I get really excited or
she pulls out the y'all.
Yeah, y'all. That is my saying. But anything that we can do on the water or travel and ocean, I'm the founder of Perfectly Made Ministries, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And yeah, I'm just so honored to be here.
One of my favorite photos that Jose posted of you one time was, it was like the first really, really warm day of the summer. And you brought, was it like an inflatable like pool? Was it like an inflatable chair that you would put in a pool?
I have an inflatable pool that I put in my yard. Yes. It's like a tanning. Yeah.
He just was like, wow, I love her.
In my yard.
And I just was laughing because truly it was like the first like little bit of sun, and you were like, I am here for it. And just out in your yard, just by yourself, living it up in the sun.
No cares. Yep. Florida girl.
Oh man, it just cracked me up. So you have a ministry.
Yes.
And I have loved, like I said, seeing you grow in that and just everything that's come from it. So many different factors. So can you just share a little bit about what your ministry is and all that you do with it?
Yeah, of course. So first, let's start with the Lord called me out of my corporate job a few years ago. And it was just one of those days where he was like, you're done. And that started a wild journey. And so fast forward a few years later, without any work, the Lord was like, I was out for a walk, the same walk I do every single day for 4 years. And he gave me a vision and he said, I want you to bring women to the park and worship. And I was like, okay, that's wild, but we'll do it. So I posted about it just on my social media and I showed up and I'm like, okay, if nobody comes, I get to go home. And people came and they kept coming. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so are we doing this? And he's like, yeah, we're doing it. And so we've been doing it for a year. A few weeks later, he said, I want you to launch a ministry. And I'm like, wait, what does that look like? And so working it out with him, he gave me the name and Perfectly Made. And yeah, it's just been a journey. It's a safe place for women to connect, for vulnerability, to heal, to connect them to Jesus. You know, we are the church outside of the church. And so whether it's park ministry or weekend retreat ministry, it's amazing.
Where did you come up with the name Perfectly Made? Yeah.
So when I was working with the Lord on this, I'm like, this is your ministry. You're going to have to give me all the things, all the blueprints. He gave me the name Perfectly Made by Ramirez. It's a song and it was just replaying over and over in my head. And so I listened to it and I was like, that's it. Like, you know, the Bible says fearfully and wonderfully made. We'll come to find out there's already a fearfully and wonderfully made ministry. So I think he knew. And so he said Perfectly Made Ministries. And so that's how the name came.
I love that. And you are so good at not even just bringing people in, but also sending them out to grow deeper. And I really loved seeing that in you and how you bring these women in, because a lot of the women that come to you, they have questions. They're new to their faith. They're not comfortable praying out loud yet. You know, there's like so many aspects to it. And you are this gentle nudge of let's go deeper. And I think you need that when you have that type of person coming in, and it's not like, why aren't you praying out loud? Why aren't you going to church? Why are you like, you just have this heart for understanding that everyone is coming in their own time and in their own journey and in their own space. And I think then that just helps lean them into, okay, I'll go to church with you. And you have brought so many people to church. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I just heard about this person and now all of a sudden they're getting baptized with Brandi.
Yes. Yes.
And so much of that, I'm sure, isn't easy to start and be comfortable with. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah. It's vulnerability. I think our heartbeat behind it is that we meet women where they're at, whether they are coming and they don't know anything about Jesus, whether they're coming and they're on fire, whether they're coming and they've had church hurt. I feel like we create a safe place, and that's the heartbeat behind it. I feel like people are going to show up to a coffee shop or a retreat before sometimes a church building.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
So that's my heart. But my goal is to also, when they're ready, point them into community in the church building as well.
And one other, the final things that your ministry does that I just really wanted to highlight is these like in-person intensive retreats and the weekends, and it's women retreats, and you go all over the state of Minnesota. You've been to Florida and have made what is like 16 women, I think is usually max, something like that. But this group and this space for strangers to come in, I got to be a part of two of your retreats, which was a huge honor. And I laughed so hard. There were these two girls, they were sister-in-laws, and they showed up not knowing anyone, not knowing Brandi.
Yes.
And they were cracking us up in their intros because they were like, we drove and we're like, is this going to be like a murderer's situation? Like, we are blindly driving in faith to go to this retreat where we know nobody, we don't know this lady, and they had an incredible time. And it's so cool to see all of these people come together that don't really know each other, and by the end, it's a sisterhood.
Yes. And the Lord orchestrates all of that.
Yeah.
I typically just do what the Lord wants. I post about it, and whoever comes. I think they might have saw it from a local group.
Yeah.
And the Lord planted them there. I just think that's so cool when women can step out and take that step of faith. Talking about obedience, that is a step of obedience, to step out, to know that I don't know anybody, but I'm going to show up and I know that God's going to show out.
Yeah. So if you're a woman and you really are craving that type of like, I need to get away for a weekend and I need to have just an intensive with the Lord, and you usually have a speaker there that is, having a topic that they speak on, but you have a group processing time, small group processing time, and fun and all that. And so it's just a really good time to disconnect and just soak with the Spirit and connect with other ladies. So you should definitely follow her if you're interested in that, because you've got one coming up, and I know a few other on the horizon. But I've thought that was a good segue into talking about what we're really here to talk about today, which is obedience. And what has obedience looked like for you throughout your life? Has that been like, oh yeah, super easy? Or what has that journey been like?
Oh man, there might be tears on this podcast, but it's been a journey. I feel like the last 3 years, the Lord has really taught me what obedience is. Honestly, I didn't know what obedience was, but it's saying yes without knowing the outcome. And it's in the small and it's in the big. And from quitting my job or being pulled out of my job and telling my husband, hey, the Lord's telling me to quit my job, and he, and we go without a financial income, to being obedient to going to a coffee shop. Sky is the limit on what it's looked like, but the last 3 years have really taught me what obedience is. And the definition of obedience is submission. It's surrender. And so it's surrendering to another authority, to the Lord over our wants and needs.
I just thought of this, of how so many people, they look at surrender as weakness. And I think surrender is really strength. Yeah. Because surrender is the strength of being a servant and being a servant to the King. How have you felt about that? Like, have you felt that it's strengthened you or weakened you in being obedient to God?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with you that it's strength, because it's not easy to live of this world, in this world, and to have your wants and desires, but it's laying it at the altar, right? Like in the Bible, it says, lay it at my feet. And so often it looks like, hey, Lord, these are my desires. Like, I never planned this for my life. Like, you chose ministry for me. I did not choose ministry, and I'll do whatever you want. It's that yes and amen. I will go. As Isaiah, Lord, send me. So it's laying it at his feet weekly, monthly, daily, multiple times a day. Yeah.
So tell me about that. Like, tell me about how it has been with obedience, and you're, thinking, okay, this is what I'm called to do. This is what you've asked me to do. How do you truly get to that point? Because you've had to do some big things that pushed you out of your comfort zone. So what gives you that, like, yep, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, it's the peace that comes with it. I remember when he first called me out of corporate, I was on Indeed.com every single day, knowing I shouldn't have been. But the fear of, this is all I know, where's our financials going to come from? And not fully trusting. And he was like, I'm going to take you on a journey of dependence on me and trust. And so it's been honestly just saying, okay, Lord, I trust you. Here we go. And he's proven every step of the way, the outcome. Like sometimes you don't always see the fruit, but it's in that small and that big.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of this today, actually, when talking about faith and talking about obedience. I think people use that term blind faith, like we're stepping out in blind faith. But I just was like, you know what? No, it's confirmed faith. It's, I have seen you show up time and time again. Yeah. In all of these ways that I am not just walking into this with blind faith of knowing, is he gonna or is he not going to? It's like, I have seen you through my acts of obedience and through saying yes, like you constantly show up. And I would just love to hear, like, if there's been times where that's happened, where you're like, I didn't know how this was going to turn out, but here we are, and look at what you did. Because I know he's done that so much in your life.
Yeah, I have so many examples, but I mean, the first one is 3 years without an income. I mean, like, you can't make that up, and that is God. I mean, that is him coming through. But even in the small of him asking me to launch a retreat or to go to a coffee shop. I can't tell you how many times he has sent me to a coffee shop, an hour away from my house, by the way, to have a divine appointment, to speak a word of encouragement into somebody. And so it's just time and time again, just those gentle nudges to say, hey, I'm with you. I got you. I have an assignment for you. Yeah.
And it's those that propel you forward to the next one. Because I'm sure when you're experiencing that and you're like, look what God did. Like, that is so cool. The next time he asks you to do it again, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it again. But what are times where you found like doubt and insecurity creep in? And how have you navigated that? Because we're human, right? We are absolutely human. Those are going to be things that we feel on the daily, and also the enemy when we have all of this momentum and God is working in our lives and moving us forward, he tries to attack us harder and he comes at you harder because he wants to silence you. He doesn't want you to step into what God has asked you to do because he knows what it is going to do for the kingdom and things like that. So what has that been like for you just in battling doubt? Because that's normal.
Yeah. Tons of insecurity come. And, I think one of the number one things was the hardest is you'll go to places, events and stuff. And the first question people ask you is, oh my gosh, what do you do for a living? And for the longest time, even I didn't have Perfectly Made. How do I explain? Oh, I'm just chilling with the Lord. Like he called me out of corporate.
Just chilling with the Lord.
I don't have a job at the moment. And I think he was, it's the identity thing. They're removing the identity, but it was very insecurity to be like, hey, yeah, I don't really have a calling at the moment. I don't really know what I'm doing. Also, I think when I've stepped out of walking with him and launched things that have fallen flat, that has been really hard. That's, where it's like, I thought you were calling me to this, Lord, but actually I ran ahead of the Lord and did it on my own strength, and having to cancel those things have been really hard.
How do you know the difference? Because I think what you just said is really impactful. And a lot of people probably struggle with it, especially those that are achievers and that are so willing. Like, God, you gave me this idea. I'm supposed to do it now. Like, that's sometimes where our mind goes because we don't want to be disobedient. Right. And we're so afraid of being disobedient that we get these ideas and we run with it. And so how do you know? Like, how have you been able to decipher, like, God, this is you, or like that I need to do right now, or this is you just preparing me?
Yeah. So I think I've learned through the wins and the fails. There's definitely been fails, but I think it's taken it to the Lord, sitting with the Lord, having that peace. Lord, is this what you want me to do right now? Is this a dream for later? Do I need to write this down? Is this, asking him those questions and not running ahead? Because I think we do get excited because we are visionaries and we have all these dreams. But just really taking it to the Lord and letting him decipher what the next step is, because he doesn't give the full blueprint. But yeah, I've had moments where I have got so excited, and for the right reasons, and it's of the Lord, and I'm going to do all these things. And then he's like, actually, no, that wasn't the season I called you to. That's not what I had you to do. I need you to cancel those things. And I'm like, oh, but I feel like a failure, and it's in those moments where I'm like, okay, before I get super excited and before I run ahead, I need to walk with the Lord. I need to take this to him in the quiet time, in the secret place, and let him decide what's my next move.
So it sounds like it's just been a lot of learning in the sense of, okay, this is where I maybe got it wrong, but not taking that as, okay, I'm never going to do it again. But you now sit and think, okay, I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to ask before I do it.
Yes.
Which I think is a great lesson to have learned, because look at all the things now that you've done and you're like, I'm in it or I'm not in it, or, the Lord's in it, not in it.
Right.
And being able to go from there is so cool.
Yeah.
How do you, once you get to that point, because I know just from knowing you personally, like some of those moments have just cut deep in the sense of I messed this up, or I don't know if this is as I envisioned it to be, or I don't feel like I have the control. There's that word, the control that I'm used to and all of that. So how do you sit in that place and then have the confidence to continue moving forward? Because I think what really can wrap up Christians is when they feel like, Lord, you told me to do this, but it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, or it messed up, or it wasn't as successful. And so does that mean like I should just be done? That I shouldn't move forward anymore? How have you built that confidence and that security to be like, no, I'm going to acknowledge, repent where I need to repent and move forward?
Yeah, that's so good. And it's been such a hard journey. I think it's, really spending time with the Lord and letting him get my heart posture right again. There's lots of tears, right? And I think he can handle all of that. And it's that surrender again. It's like, okay, I lay it back down at your feet. Here's all the things. And just walking in confidence to say, okay, yep, I want to be that leader that is spirit filled, that listens to the Lord, that when he says no, we cancel, we pivot. And so there's been a lot of moments where people have been really receptive of that. And they're like, wow, okay, like she's hearing from the Lord. Like we're going to follow that. We're going to follow her prompting of, and there's been some moments where people haven't understood and they've gotten really upset. And so I think you have to stay true to what God called you to, stay in your lane. I've had to learn a lot of staying in my lane. Like there's all these things that these people are doing, but what has Brandi been called to? What has Perfectly Made been called to? And so I think it's the repentance, the sitting, the growing with the Lord. And I honestly think that's where our growth in the Lord, in hearing his voice, comes from.
Yeah. How have you grown in that aspect of hearing from the Lord? And, because you're saying these things of, he told me to go to this coffee shop. He told me to do this and to not do this. And I hear that. And I'm sure a lot of other people hear that. And they're like, wow, look at her. Like just really hearing from the Lord. How have you built that attunement to what he is saying to you over time?
Yeah, that's so good because it's different seasons, right? Sometimes it's silent, sometimes it's vision, sometimes it's dreams, sometimes you're like, what are you saying? But I have a rhythm of every single day I spend an hour or more in the secret place with the Lord. I have my phone off, so I hear his voice above everybody else's, before everybody. But just really asking him back and forth like a friend. Like I'm not doing all the talking, but I'm asking him questions, even to the point where I'm like, hey, Lord, what do you want me to wear today? Where should I go today? What should I do? And I think it's just strengthening that. Like the other day, I was like, okay, Lord, it's our Sabbath. Like, I'm so excited. What do you want this to look like? And he highlighted a coffee shop an hour away. And that's not something that I would have thought of out of the random, and I'm like, okay, so that's hearing the voice of the Lord. And if I got it wrong, it's okay because I got a coffee out of it, but there was an assignment, there was an assignment attached to it. And so I think it's the trial and error of like, I think I heard the Lord. Was that me? Wait, I wouldn't have thought of that. Why would I pick a random coffee shop an hour away, And I think it comes with peace, right?
Yeah. And I think it's really important to highlight too what you said. It's like you are intentional about taking those moments of sitting with him every day. And you mentioned this earlier too. I'm dying to myself today. I'm dying to my plans. It's your plans. It's your purpose. Where can I be growing in this? What can I do in this? And using him as that direction. And I think that is crucial for people who are wanting to step into obedience, because I look at the Bible and I look at all of the people that he used in the Bible, and there is not a single thing that connects them except for their heart to be obedient to the Lord and their surrender. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter where you came from, if you're a man or a woman, any of those things. If you have this ultimate heart of surrender and use me, that is what he seeks. He seeks the heart of obedience. Exactly what we're talking about today. So when you create that atmosphere of like, Lord, use me, he is just going to pour into you and pour into you and be like, yes, and leading you. And if you have that heart of like, I'm going to, like, I admire that so much about you, where you're like, you know what, this is where I made a mistake. I repent, I renounce. You don't try and cover it up. Like some leaders might want to cover it up, like, oh, we made this mistake, or not even say it's a mistake, or we're changing plans, things change. But you are so vulnerable to say, I messed up. I might have gotten ahead of the game a little bit. And that's why I think people just respect it so much.
Yeah, I love vulnerability. The most inspiring people that I'm inspired by are the people that say it like it is and don't cover it up. Like, hey, I got it wrong. I thought I heard this, or I thought we were going this way, but this is where we're going. I think people value honesty and vulnerability. And I'm the first. I'm the first to go there and say, yeah, I messed up.
Do you know an exceptional leader in your life? Someone who demonstrates Christ-like character and is an example of excellence? A woman who empowers others and is dedicated to the betterment of her community and circle of influence? We want you to nominate her for the Lund Leadership Award, presented at the annual BTG Leadership Conference this coming February 20th and 21st in Alexandria, Minnesota. In honor of our founder, Carol Lund, Bridging the Gap loves to celebrate and champion those extraordinary women in our lives who are leading with excellence. You can find more information, criteria for nominations, and the submission form online at mnbtg.org/sisterhood/Lund Leadership Award. The deadline for nominations is fast approaching, so be sure to nominate by October 31st.
And I just feel like I'm supposed to ask you this of when people, like, I would love for you to speak encouragement right now into the person that is feeling really blocked in their obedience. They're feeling really blocked in, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know whether I'm supposed to step forward or things like that. Or maybe they do know and they are just very nervous and scared and don't want to. Do you just have any encouragement for them?
Yes. Number one, your obedience is attached to someone else's breakthrough.
Wow. Say that again.
Your obedience is attached to someone else's breakthrough. So get moving, because somebody else, you're an answered prayer on the other side. And that, I think, is what we need to get going, to not be bound by fear. Or I don't know, when I hear that and I think somebody else's breakthrough is on the other side of my yes, it's like, okay, here I go. If they're having a block, I would say, cut out the noise, spend some time with the Lord. He will speak. He speaks, and he wants you to do that thing. And so sit with him and ask him, maybe what's the next step? What's that one thing that I need to do that I haven't been doing? Or, delayed obedience is disobedience. And so it's like, okay, Lord, have I missed this? Where do I need to go back? What's the last thing you asked me to do, and do that thing?
So when you're sitting in that place, what are certain scriptures or things that you have clung to and held on to try to get out of that?
I live in Psalms. Psalms is like my all things, but I can do all things through Christ is my life verse. And so I always cling to that. But just sitting in Psalms and taking it to the Lord, I feel like is the biggest thing. And one of the things too is, when do we need to keep going and when do we need to rest? Because you have actually been really helpful for me in this of, I was in this just a couple months ago. I had all these things on my to-do list that I felt like I was supposed to do, and I had no motivation. And it was like this supernatural no motivation. And you were able to call it out of, maybe you feel this block for a reason, because maybe it's the Lord giving a stop sign. Like, you need to stop and you need to rest. Yeah. And I think that in itself is obedient. Obedience isn't always go, go, go. Right. It's sometimes you have to rest. It's in those hard moments of rest. Sit down, my Kelty, Brandi. I know you're type A, you like checklists, but rest is obedience, because he has to pour into us before we can go and pour out. And us in ministry, we're constantly pouring out, and he is so generous. He's such a good father just to sit us down. I say sometimes it's a timeout with our sassiness, right? Yes. Take a time out, drink your coffee, and turn on a show or turn on some worship, because you've been going too much and I need to pour into you before you can go again. That's so good. So good. And, you mentioned this earlier about other people and how they've spoken into your life, sometimes good and sometimes bad. And I think that is very common for anybody in ministry, and not even just in ministry, anybody trying to step into obedience with what the Lord has. There are going to be people that say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I mean, look at Noah, right? He's a classic example of you're crazy. Why are you building this ark? And all these other people in the Bible that did not understand why people were saying I feel like the Lord has called me to do this. So what has that journey been like for you with having people impacting your journey? Have you felt that it's helped propel you forward? How have you handled the people that maybe were the naysayers and you didn't let it drag you down? Yeah, this hits hard. I think the hardest part was trying to tell my husband that the Lord has called me to this, because he didn't get that download. And so it started there. It started with trying to explain to my husband, I promise this is where I'm supposed to be. And it trickled from there. And then just clinging to spiritual mentors and in the Lord, Lord, you called me to this. This looks crazy. Like, we are set apart. This is not like any other. And it's been hard. There's been lots of, did he, the enemy wants to come in, like, did he actually say, like with Adam and Eve, right? Did he actually call you to this? Did he actually ask you to quit your job? And that's where the indeed would come in, right? But it's like, I would get on there and I would know I'm not supposed to be on here with get that icky feeling. And that's not from the Lord. And I'm like, I have to get off of here. I have to trust him. But it's been really hard because he's just recently stripped me of, approval of man and the people pleasing, for all my life. As a child, I've always been, I'll do what the crowd wants, because I don't want to ripple any feathers, So it's definitely been a journey, but he keeps reminding me in those moments, I called you to this. Like, you didn't just pull this out. You didn't choose this. I would have never chose this, and so just sticking to it, and also remembering that this is my race, that he called me to this, and not looking at other people's races or how fast they're going or how slow they're going, and just kind of keeping my eyes on it. But I'm going to be real and say it's been difficult, definitely difficult, but worth it.
Absolutely. So how do you actually confront that? Because a lot of that is spiritual attack, right? It's a spiritual attack of the enemy trying to tell us that we can't do this, we're not good enough for this, and things like that. And sometimes he uses other people to speak that over our lives too. And I don't know about you, but when it comes from another person, like, I can usually do a lot in my head to fight off lies and intrusive thoughts. But when it comes from another person doubting you or trying to put down what you're doing, it just kind of hits different. So how have you kind of been on the defense and the offense to fight against that as you're jumping into, this is what the Lord has called me to do?
Yeah. In the beginning, I felt like it was a lot of me trying to explain and over-explain. But I would say the last 6 months, the Lord has really shown me that he's my defender. And so he fights for me. And so I've had to surrender that. And I don't over explain now. Like, I know that the Lord called me to this, and we're going to keep going that way. I mean, just recently I had a demonic assignment and attack sent to me via person. And it wasn't a person that I ever expected. And so it stopped me in my tracks. Right. And it's like, wait, is there actually truth to this?
They were like speaking things over your life.
You shouldn't do this. Who are you? All those things, and you don't have a spiritual covering, and, just things to make you sit back and question. And so took it to the Lord, and he was like, this is a spiritual attack. So then I knew right away how to fight it, right? It's demonic, cast it out. I know the truth, speak truth, expose the lie, all those things. But I think I have such a peace now that the Lord fights for me. I don't need somebody to say, yep, Brandi, the Lord, he gave you that. Like, they didn't get the announcement, he doesn't need to give them the announcement.
On the PA system.
Yeah. And so I think the fruit shows that the Lord, has asked me to do this. And so it hasn't always been that way. I would say back in the day, I would question it and go down this rabbit hole, but God is so good to strip those things away and prune the things that can't come with us, to say he fights for me.
Right. And I just think his timing is perfect. And especially when it comes to things that we are broken free from and healing. And we were just talking about this the other day of when you are stepping out and you are breaking alignment with things, you are breaking chains, breaking agreements, and starting to have these revelations of, like you said, like, I'm no longer going to be a people pleaser. I am no longer going to struggle with this fear of man and the opinions of others. You do that, and it's like you just step into the next level of what he has for you. But you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to break this off and say, I'm not going to let all of these things just distract me and hold me down from what the Lord has called me to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's, it's just one of those things where the fear of man is a big one for, I think, a lot of people listening today, of the fear of opinions and what people are going to say. Are they going to think I'm crazy? Are they going to think, why is she leaving her really good paying job to go and not have a job and do this? And you have to block it out. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Yeah,
I agree. And society, right? Society doesn't make it any easier. But I think we live for well done, my good and faithful servant. And I don't want to get to heaven and the Lord say, hey, you listened to so-and-so over me and you went the wrong way. And I don't ever want that to happen. So we have to work through it.
And I love that you mentioned finding like spiritual mentors in your life too, because that is something that when we're feeling down and when we're feeling doubt, they can speak into our lives.
Yes.
Like, what has spiritual mentorship been like for you and helped you with in these hard moments?
Yeah, I think finding those spiritual mentors that speak truth. And I love a good accountability. I love when somebody will call it out.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to say, oh, you're doing so great. I want you to call out what you see, because that's how we grow. But I've called on those that I really respect, that have been through the fire, that know how to walk with the Lord, who hear from the Lord. And I've had to be very cautious with who I let speak into my life, because not everybody has the same heartbeat, right? And so finding those spiritual mentors and the small circle of friends that are Holy Spirit led, aligned, and that have love for you, but that hard truth of like, hey, this is kind of where you were wrong too.
Can you speak about that more? Because I feel like what you just said is a really big one for people who listen to everyone. But you just said there are only certain people I let speak into my life. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Yeah.
And it's been a journey, because I love people. And so my husband is like, I don't know how, I can't keep up with all your people. Like I used to be, again, I love people. And so the Lord had to show me, I have such a heart for people, that he had to really show me to be careful, guard my heart. I couldn't go to everyone with certain situations, right? So I asked him, okay, well, highlight some people that you want to be those people that speak into my life, that are aligned, that are, you have to be careful. Because I was just going to anybody and everybody that I thought was spirit filled, but he showed me that, if the fruit ain't fruiting, so he gave me
fruit ain't fruiting.
Yeah. I mean, they'll know you by your fruit, right?
Yeah.
And we can all say we're Christians and we're followers of Christ, but I look at the fruit. And so he's been really kind to, it's been a pruning process. He's removed a lot of people, but added the ones that I need in that season. Right. And I think they come and go and seasons change, but that I could get on a phone call with for an hour and just say, here's my questions. How would you navigate this? Or speaking to me, what do you see actually happening here? And letting them do that.
Because it truly is. It's that people pleasing mentality and how we always tend to want to like hear everyone's opinion, right? Because it's, tell me what you thought. Tell me what you thought. But I really love that you said that of, no, there's this tight circle that I actually want to speak into my life. And it's not just the people, because what you didn't say was it's not just people that are going to make me feel good about myself.
Right.
And that are going to speak life and like in the sense of butterflies and rainbows, you're doing great. But the people that are like, hey, this is actually where I'm concerned, or red flag. You can sit there and say, this is this opportunity I just got. This is what I'm feeling the Lord is saying. What do you think? And have it be people that like they are spirit filled and they have good discernment and good judgment and will actually tell you and correct you where you need to be corrected, or say, I think, Mahaldi, you need to slow down and listen to the red stop sign that the Lord is putting in your face.
Right.
So that's a really important point that I don't think a lot of people think about is who are you letting speak into your life?
Influence. Yeah. Yeah. I just got off the phone with my girlfriend, best friend, and she'll call it out. And she said, you've grown a lot. Yay, Lord. And she said, you didn't ask for my opinion. You told me what the Lord called you to do and you were going to do it. And you didn't ask, do you think I should do this? And I was like, thank you, Lord, for bringing me so far. And it's that hearing his voice over time. In the beginning, I was so like, ooh, I don't know about this. Hey, do you think I should do this? Yeah. Instead of knowing that the Lord said, you're going to do this. And so that was really cool.
Yeah. That confidence. Oh, that's so good. Well, as we're just wrapping up our time here together, I honestly just feel that there are so many nuggets of wisdom that people can take from this to just be encouraged and also maybe challenged. Like I did pray that of like, I hope people are challenged in this and looking and figuring out like, where do I need to align myself more with following the Lord and his call on my life? But as we're wrapping up, is there anything that like, maybe you're like, I really just want to say this that we didn't get to, or just a final piece of encouragement for people who are listening?
Yeah, I would just encourage you to get going. I talked to a girl yesterday. I have a book coming out, which was not my plan, and the Lord asked me to launch it. So that's coming out, Trading Trials for Testimony. And she said, you inspired me. I've had this dream that I know I was supposed to do for 10 years. And now I'm getting to it. I'm writing the book. And so I think I would just encourage you to get started. Do that thing that you know that you're supposed to do. If you need discernment and clarity, take it to the Lord, and remember that your obedience is attached to someone else's breakthrough. And it might not be easy, but I promise that his plans are better than ours.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could be attached to your breakthrough too.
Yes.
I think that it's looking at the Lord has the biggest picture, and he knows all of it. And we may not understand, like, why am I supposed to do this? This is crazy.
It's often crazy.
It's often crazy. I just have to end on this story. It just popped into my mind about this.
Oh boy.
It was so crazy. It was not me. I heard a speaker talking about this and sharing the story of how there was a situation where a woman was just like, she wanted to commit suicide. Like, she just did not want to live anymore. She was having such a hard time. She actually worked at this laundromat. And she said, you know what, Lord, if you want me to spare my life and you want I just to live, have somebody come into this laundromat right now. She's probably being sassy, right?
Like
just
us,
like totally being sassy. Like, have somebody come into this laundromat where I am working and like do a handstand in the laundromat.
Wow.
Just like totally outrageous, right? And she's sitting there working like in the back office. She has cameras like seeing the laundromat. And sure enough, this guy walks into the laundromat that night, looks around, like you could see the look on his face, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he just walks over and does a handstand.
Yes.
And she could not believe what she was seeing. And she went out and talked to him. And he said, I don't know. I felt like the Lord told me today randomly that I was supposed to go into this laundromat. I was supposed to do a handstand.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. And I was like, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. I'm going to look crazy. What if there's people in there? Like, what, all of these excuses that we like to come up with. And the Lord said, I need you to do it. And that moment, she's like, okay, yep, you're real. You're real, Lord.
Aww.
And just that act of obedience. Yeah. Because you just said it might be crazy. It probably would be crazy. That crazy act of obedience. We never know what's on the other side of it. And we never know what that could be for our lives or for somebody else's lives. So we do the crazy things,
I love that.
All that. But that story just popped into my head. So I just had to share it because I think it just reminds us of like how big our God is and how he completely is orchestrating all of our stories at the same time and pulling us in so that we can be a part of other people's stories too. And I think that is so incredible. So
I love that she challenged. Well, first of all, I think he likes when we challenge him. Like, if you're real, do this. Watch me. But I love what's the worst that could have happened? He does a handstand and nothing happens. He goes home. So that's where it's like, did I get it wrong? Just do it, because who cares? Yeah. And then he goes home. But he actually changed a life that day. Yeah. Yay, God.
Yeah. Yay, God. So, Brandi,
so fun.
This was so much fun. Thank you just for sharing your vulnerability and your thoughts on obedience and just what the Lord has done in your life, from the hard moments and the good moments. I mean, there's so many wins, and then there's so many, okay, I got to do this better. And I think when we're all vulnerable with that and we're all open with it, it just helps other people to move forward too. So thank you so much for being on today and just sharing your heart. And I'm so excited for your book to come out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So fun.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Bridging the Gap podcast. We were honored to hear from Brandi Ramirez on obedience over everything. You can learn more about Brandi and the work she does, including her new book, Trading Trials for Testimony, on her website, perfectlymadeministries.com. Find her on social media at Brandi Lynn Ramirez and give her a follow. You can learn more about Bridging the Gap at mnbtg.org or by following MNBTG on social media. And we invite you to take a moment to rate and review this podcast to help others find this resource as well. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to being with you next time on the Bridging the Gap podcast.